Hello, everybody. Crystal here at the Fibromyalgia Pain Chronicles and Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia, teaming up with Melissa Talwar, the founder of the Support Fibromyalgia Network, to bring you tips, tricks, strategies, and information to help you improve your legislative advocacy efforts. But you do not have to take my word for it. In fact, I've brought a special guest today, Brian Talley. He is a Marine veteran, and he is the driving force behind the legislative bill known as the Talley Bill, which brought about historical change and overturned a 74-year loophole at the Veteran Affairs healthcare system. So without further ado, let me introduce you all to Brian Talley of Rally Around Talley. Brian, how are you today?
Good morning, Crystal. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well.
Thank you for joining us. I'm really ecstatic that you agreed to do this because I feel that your personal, journey that led to such groundbreaking policy change at the VA needs to be heard and shared, and also help people learn that you do not need a big organization backing you or a ton of funding to bring about positive changes to impact your community. So for everybody who tunes in, can you give us some history and some background about how you started your journey, what happened to basically bring about this change and you becoming an advocate to overturn a 74-year loophole at the VA?
Yeah, sure. So back in 2016, I suffered some very egregious VA medical malpractice back in January 2016 that nearly killed me. I was a small business owner, father of four, been married over 20 years, and I was the champion, the breadwinner of my family. So my family depended on me for my job and for my health. And so when I got sick, one day I couldn't get out of bed. My wife took me to the VA ER where they pretty much gave me delayed and denied care. I was in very bad shape. I couldn't walk. I was having panic attacks on the floor. I was in so much pain at the VA ER. They shot me up with Dilaudid and Kenalog and methocarbamol and gave me high-end opioids, tons of pills, sent me home repeatedly, where I would spend the next 4 months dying in a chair. Finally, one day, I had experimental surgery done at a private facility in San Diego, and they uncovered that I had a bone-eating staph infection that was eating me alive. That was eating my spine and internal organs, which led to a host of other residual problems. Ended up losing my company, ended up losing my equipment, my truck, ended up racking up financial debt, lost a home, a rental home, and essentially began to ruin my life and everything that I've ever worked so hard for in my life. I had never had any life-changing moments before, so it was all new to me. I was always a happy-go-lucky guy, the life of the party, and then now I found myself completely in my room, self-isolating, dealing with severe pain, physically, mentally, and emotionally. After all this stuff happened, I filed a tort claim for injuries and loss. And once I filed that tort claim with the Office of General Counsel, they were very apologetic, and they were going to settle my claim. And they did state that they failed to meet the standard of care, and there was a breach in liability, and that they were very sorry, as this was one of the most egregious medical malpractice cases that has been around, in recent time, just because of the length of the actual malpractice and negligence. And then on top of that, I was being eaten alive by a staph infection in the most critical area of your body. So again, they were sorry, they were apologetic, they were going to settle my claim. From month 6 to month 12, they led us down this garden path, stating again that everything was going to be okay. We wouldn't lose everything, and that they would make me whole again financially. At the 1 year mark, they they dropped a bombshell. They stated that the clinician that they were going to hold accountable for this incident was an independent contractor and not a VA employee. So there's a law from 1946 that states that the U.S. government is not responsible for anybody working within the halls and the walls of the VA if you are not a U.S. government employee. So what they did is they did an about face and left me and my family holding the bag. And I tell you what, that was the kill shot that put me on my knees, knowing that there's no way out, feeling hopeless and feeling helpless, and put me into another severe whirlwind of nightmares, if you will. And at that point, I didn't feel like, again, there was nothing I can do. I'm going to lose everything. The fear, just everything just came to a head, and I went and hid. I was scared, and again, fear, and that's where I went. I self-isolated in my room, dealing with pain, and I was no longer me. It was kind of like a part of me had died, and then I was just trying to figure out, one, how we're going to get through it as a family. How am I going to get through it as a man? And that's pretty much where the story starts when it comes to the legislation efforts that we have put into the tally bill.
So, like, in a nutshell, you went to a VA ER because your back was killing you. I mean, literally and metaphorically, and you went and they misdiagnosed you is what started all this, correct? When you originally went to the VA ER, what did they initially diagnose you with before you even found out down the road that you had a bacteria eating infection? That's basically what happened?
So 3 trips to the VA, all resulted in the same delayed and denied care. They said I was fine. They said I had a low back sprain, which didn't make any sense because there was no trauma. I didn't fall down, didn't hurt myself. I just couldn't get out of bed one day. And I went from being, a fairly, active, 38-year-old male to being a completely broken man, literally, overnight. And it was so fast. It was so rapid. I mean, and I posed every red flag there was. I mean, the crazy night sweats, the pain, you could see I was dropping weight considerably. I wasn't eating. I wasn't using the restroom. I mean, there was a lot of, flags, red flags that, that were there, that were all missed. And so, unfortunately, even though the VA does a lot of good things, there's a lot of veterans that end up, falling through the cracks. And I just happened to be one of those veterans on that day that fell through the crack on multiple occasions. Like I said, throughout about a 4-month period. It's horrible.
So basically you went, they were like, you have a back strain. You went again. Yeah, still a back strain. Yep. Third time. Yeah, back strain. We're not going to run any tests or anything and just say you got a back strain. And then fast forward and you get this, basically, as you said, exploratory surgery. And that's when they found out that, oh no, you got something real serious going on. You have a bacteria eating infection that's basically killing your spine and your organs. And then the VA's like, our bad, we're going to compensate you for our bad. And then you waited like a year-ish and they come back and they say, oh, wait, no, not our bad. We're not responsible for the medical providers that are working inside our buildings that are contracted and not direct employees. And then they're like, sorry, no compensation for you, even though they made the mistake. And now there's another interesting caveat when they finally told you that they were not responsible for someone who is contracted to work within the buildings of the VA healthcare facilities, who's a contracted provider. And even though they wear the ID and the VA, uniform or coat, they come back to you and there's this other little caveat where it's like, okay, the VA is not responsible. So any other course of action you could have taken, you could not take because there was something else that I know within all this that also kind of denied your due process rights. Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, sure. So, and you're exactly right. They wear the VA badge, the VA doctor's coats. They have business cards. They see VA patients. Everything would point to them being VA employees, and nobody knows who they are. They're all unidentified, working in the VA, and that's the VA's way of really deflecting liability when problems happen in a VA hospital. And again, it's criminal. It's absolutely fraudulent, this practice, and it is something that should never be occurring. Especially in the United States, when you have veterans that are going to a hospital because they don't feel well. And when doctors screw up, there's zero accountability, there's zero transparency, and there's zero justice. So again, when all this happened to me, I began to figure out what needs to happen to change this law, so that veterans will actually have a clear path of legal recourse and the transparency that all veterans deserve after falling victim to medical malpractice due to no fault of their own. So you're right. My right to due process was absolutely destroyed once I got that letter at the 1 year mark that dropped the bombshell that said that we could not hold the doctor accountable. However, that's why they waited the 1 year to send me that letter. So they led us down this garden path for 6 months and saying that everything was going to be okay. When I got the letter at the 1 year mark, it stated that I needed to sue the independent contractor, the said clinician, in state court in California. That letter was sent 3 days after my California state statute of limitations expired, therefore denying my right to due process in federal court in California, and allowing the VA not to submit any bad paper on this doctor to the National Practitioner Data Bank, because that's statute of limitation was blown as well. So basically, the VA is like, oops, our bad. Yeah, no, contracted medical provider. We don't owe you anything. And then, oh, by the way, yeah, you can sue this doctor in a civil court. But, oh, our bad. We sent you that information after your ability to do that expired. So they basically blocked your ability to basically have any way of obtaining some retribution. And so some people might be listening, they might think that retribution or having some recourse is about financial. And yes, it's like when you lose your livelihood, there is, that potential to gain some of that financial that you lost. But the other thing, though, more importantly, is it didn't even give you the ability for the state of California to know that this was not a good provider who misdiagnosed you. And because you're past the statute of limitations, you couldn't report that. And it basically, the VA barred you and blocked you from several points of due process, both on their end and then on the civil end. And then I know your story, and I've tried to, not give too much away, but at this point, I know that you have spoken that you were just like, I'm almost done here. Like you wanted to give up, but you had 1% left. And it was that 1% of strength, determination, and really compassion for your fellow veterans that started the ball rolling on your legislative journey to change this loophole at the VA. And like I said earlier, it wasn't that you had the backing of a major organization or a lobbyist. You did not have funding. And so
can you kind of give us a guide on, you went through this whole, journey or path with the VA to find out that they were not going to be held responsible. Now, because they notified you it was an independent contractor after the statute of limitations expired in the state of California, it's kind of like in life with all situations, you have one or two ways to go, up or down. And you chose the up path. You chose that despite everything, you were going to make a change, and it wasn't going to impact you, but impact all of your fellow veterans. And so you basically started this path of grassroots advocacy that you initiated on your own. And it led to you writing and drafting the tally bill and all that other fun stuff. So if you wouldn't mind kind of just guiding through us the points of what happened and how you started this and what you had to do and what you learned along the way.
Well, I had every barrier and brick wall that could have been stacked against me. I didn't have the congressman. My congressman screwed up in Congress, so he was relieved of his congressional duties. So I didn't even have a voice in Washington. So I had to draft an online legislative team to essentially put all of my ideas into bill form that would, again, close this loophole in the VA that has destroyed the lives of veterans and their families for generations. What I did is I had about a group of 12 folks, and then that grew and grew and grew and grew. And I had a bunch of people in my group that were very motivated and passionate about this change as well, because I didn't do this solely on my own. I know you've been a huge advocate of this as well. So I'm just a guy that it happened to, and I'm just a little bit of the driving force behind it. So we got this bill done in bill form, and I started to email hundreds of members of Congress my ideas and my story, and all those emails went unanswered. So I raised a few dollars, and I boarded a plane to DC, where I hand delivered the tally bill to Congress, where I walked the halls, urging lawmakers to change this outdated law. And once I got to DC, boots on the ground, then I started to be taken seriously once some of these members actually heard what was going on. And so within 30 days, in 2018, it was October, in the 115th Congress, we had HR 7105 that was introduced by Congressman Dave Bratt. He went on to not be reelected in the 116th Congress, which was only like a month away. So I had to start all over again, January 2019. Showed back up to DC January 19th now for a second time, and I met with another 50 reps in 3 days. Absolutely still suffer from chronic pain and depression and anxiety and all that other stuff that comes along with pain. So I just filled my pockets up with pain pills and anxiety meds and muscle relaxers, and I go and did the same thing again. I caught the attention of another member of Congress, and that led to my second bill being introduced, which was HR 3813. And then I went back in June because there was nothing going on, and I caught another member of of Congress, and that led to my third bill being introduced, HR 4526, and still nothing was moving. And the work that we put into this every single day for almost 3 years, every second, every minute, every hour of every day, never giving up and having it always be on my mind as the number one obsession in my life to get this law changed, because I know what it did to me and to thousands of others before me. And I found that I was responsible to get this fixed. I couldn't let it go. Because I was already this far. I was like, we got to finish this job, because there's too many lives, at risk. 20 million veterans in this country deserve better. So I went back to DC for a fourth time and finally got the attention of some U.S. senators, which in turn introduced Senate Bill 4883. It actually passed the Senate fairly quickly, and then it got sent back to the House for a second time because I had already had one bill passed in the House, but they had some slight modifications, and then they redid those modifications, and then it passed the House. And crazy thing is President Trump signed the tally bill into law on January 5th of 2021. Essentially giving veterans, the transparency that that they all deserve. And that's finding out what the employment status is pretty much on these clinicians. So they can't hide behind the VA veil anymore with zero accountability. And again, this shouldn't have taken an act of Congress, but unfortunately, stuff like this does. So I'm glad it's over. Absolutely exhausted. This has taken 3 years of my life legislatively. It's taken 5 years of my life total. And, to be honest with you, like I said, I'm exhausted. I'm relieved. I'm happy. I'm proud. I'm still sad. What a journey.
And again, I know your journey, and last month, well, I should say January of 2021, it like kind of hit me, and we didn't even have a text message or a conversation about it, but I realized, I was like, man, it's been 5 years since this journey really started with you, because it was it January 2016 that this all started unraveling with your health, being misdiagnosed, and then 5 years later, and there's some interesting pieces, like, correct me, I might be wrong, because sometimes, I get this brain fog thing, and then I got blonde hair. It's like a double whammy against me. But wasn't it in November on the Marines' birthday that Senate that approved the 4883 Senate bills? Was that the day that the Senate approved their version of the tally bill?
Yeah, what a Marine Corps birthday that was. Yep.
Yeah. And that was like the day before Veterans Day as well. Something like that. The way I just remember, it was on the Marine Corps birthday that you got the news.
November 10th was the Marine Corps birthday, and the following day was Veterans Day.
Veterans Day. And
so yeah, I mean, I don't know if they planned that on purpose. It could have been planned that way, but it definitely looked good on their part congressionally, that they would essentially close a 74-year VA legal loophole, one on the day of the Marine veteran who brought this bill about, and then the following day being Veterans Day. So yeah, that was great. But even then, when it passed the Senate, we didn't have a lot of time to get this job done, because it doesn't matter how much work is put into this during the congressional, session, it being in the 116th Congress. Our days were numbered. We only had so many legislative days left. Can
you explain that to people who don't understand this level of advocacy? Like, they get, when I first started doing this form of advocacy, 25 years ago. It's been a long time, and like quarter of a century. Wow. Oh my gosh.
I bet you were only like 30.
But a lot of people, like, they don't understand, like, they'll hear the 115th Congress and the 116th Congress. And, to break it down, it's that every term that Congress serves is assigned a number. So when you started this journey, you were dealing with and working with the 115th Congress, and then midterm elections happened. And so basically, the congressional leader that you initially got to support the tally bill didn't get reelected, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so then we went into the 116th Congress. And then for 2 years, everybody was rallying around tally. And I'll get into this in a second. For 2 years under the 116th Congress, getting this tally bill through Congress and getting the congressional support on top of the Senate support. And it literally did come down to the wire because the 116th was due to expire come January 2021. And so the Senate approved their version of the tally bill November 10th of 2020. And essentially, you and the tally team basically had 6 weeks to get Congress to basically reapprove it, because they approved another version, but then Senate approved it and sent it back to Congress with a couple of little amendments. But essentially, it was at that point, I would say, that yourself and your supporters and the tally team went on a blitzkrieg of reaching out to Congress leaders, because there was such a short amount of time to get this approved, because if it wasn't, you're going to have to start over again in January 2021 with the 117th Congress, correct? So the last, basically 6 to 8 weeks was fast forward scramble play, trying to get it through. And you got to that point, starting off with having no congressional leader in your district in California. So you basically had to go online and self-teach yourself how to write a legislative bill. You pulled in a small team of doers to help you with different facets of the advocacy, journey here for the tally bill. And you had some of those people that had the background in helping you write that legislative bill. You had people who were really good at going out and engaging the community, or going to events to engage, the staffers of congressional leaders. And you had people that were doing kind of like social media calls to action, and people helping you fundraise. And a lot of people might think that your team of doers was like 100 people, but essentially you use social media to really promote the tally bill with a small group of people who were basically kind of like your PR people as social media. So can you explain that facet of how the role that social media played, like how you had your small team of doers and how they utilize social media to garner the support and get people to call their congressional and Senate leaders and raising funds? How did social media come into play? Do you feel that social media helped with the different steps of success of the tally bill, where, if you felt like it helped push it to where you needed to be, and share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Let me kind of state, because you've touched on a lot there, but as I speak all this through really quickly, talking congressional, 115th, 116th, all these bill numbers, all this stuff that doesn't make any sense to the average person. I didn't know a thing about anything in Congress. I was a custom landscape contractor. I coached my kids in baseball. I didn't really pay attention a whole lot to politics. I didn't pay attention a whole lot to bills and Senate bills and House bills. So again, yes, I had to teach myself how to become an advocate. I wasn't an advocate before this. I had to teach myself how to read legislation. I had to teach myself how to effectively communicate with Congress. I had to teach myself everything, and I did it as I went forward. Again, getting 1% better every single day. Baby steps, little bits here and there that added up to this big, major accomplishment at the end. So for other people out there that may be going through something similar, you don't need all this experience. You just need some passion and a plan that can help move your cause and whatever you find important to you forward, and to just know that it's not easy. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to be downright frightening at times. But it does take a bit of courage to stand up and fight for what's right, and do it in a professional manner, I think that's why I've come so far in the veteran advocacy realm, is because the veteran population is a very at-risk population. And, there's a lot of veterans that suffer from post-traumatic stress and a host of other things that put veterans in very vulnerable positions. And a lot of veterans don't, and they do not effectively communicate with a lot of these folks that change laws because they are angry. And once you begin to express your anger, these folks will tune you out. So effectively communicating is something that I have found to be the number one most important thing here when it comes to advocating and essentially giving the voiceless in this country a voice. So to go now to social media, I created a page called Rally Around Tally, and it began with me. And every single day I would post on there what's going on, what we did today. I was holding myself accountable. I was holding myself accountable to the 20 million veterans out there, letting them know that we are engaging in this and we will not stop until we have law. And I will fight for you, and I will fight for what's right. And every single day we'd get a few more likes and follows, and we would, my media team behind me of some great folks that have entered my life throughout this process would create some some media material that we would put out there. And again, we would show what we were doing every day. I would put my minutes out there, and then every visit, and everything was well documented. The story reads like a book, and you can go back all the way to my very first post on that several years ago. And you could see every day as we got better, and we climbed that hill, we climbed that mountain. And I met you on social media, and you were and still are a great advocate of the Tally Bill. And I know we wouldn't have had law without your efforts and the efforts of the folks that you work with at the fibromyalgia groups online that you run. And to let your folks know, I don't suffer from fibromyalgia, but I do suffer from chronic pain, all three levels of my spine, some organs in my belly. So I understand pain and what it can do, the whole brain fog, the dry eyes, the sleeping, irregularities and all that other stuff. So those people that you work with and advocate for all understood my story as well on that level. And I believe that a lot of these folks, took it upon themselves as well to help contribute $25 here and $50 here to get me back to DC 4 times, to help pay, for hotel and food accommodations, the volunteers and the social media. That's how it all got out there. So if it wasn't for social media, I don't think we would have had law. Again, social media helps hold people accountable. So everybody can see. It's kind of, like an open playbook. Again, a lot of these members of Congress really don't care what's put out about them because these guys have very thick skin. And it's still very hard to get things done, even with social media. The social media part played a huge role in getting the masses involved. So getting, instead of getting 1 call or 2 calls a day to some of these reps, they'd get 100 calls or sometimes 200 calls. And then we would flood their Facebook page and we would let them know in a professional manner that they should really act on this because there are so many folks at risk. Anybody that goes to the VA is at risk of this loophole. And I felt, again, that it was important enough to put myself out there, to be vulnerable and to tell my story, and to create and promote this change, again, that all veterans deserve, any human. I mean, this boils down to, like you said, losing your livelihood. And, and that is, for, a man that is very prideful, and that has been a leader of his family and other Marines and employees in my business. It's hard to do. It's hard to put yourself out there, and but that's what needs to be done at times for people to understand the level of injustice and the level of pain, again, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, of what this will do, to a person and to a family. I've been blessed with great friends, great support, great kids, great wife. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my support system. So, support systems are very, very important. And I know that you live every day as a support system. So again, I know I've told you this a million times. I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you and everything you have done and your work and your commitment to seeing stories like mine and thousands of others, like it through. Because like I said, if it wasn't for folks like you, to help these platforms, I know you gotta be very aggressive at times. Hey, you're a great microphone. And so you're definitely somebody great to have in their corner.
Count on me for that. I'm loud. I am definitely loud.
Yeah. So.
Oh man, you're making me glassy eyed. Just so people, I'm dealing with allergies today, but I literally had a true tear there, and it wasn't because of allergies, just because like I said, I've known you for so long, but I just always feel that you need to support each other. And I'm so proud to call you a friend. I'm so proud to call you a fellow advocate. The jury, and I know that you have several times have thanked me, or we've had these conversations, but I mean, really, you're the driving force. And the fact of the matter is, you decided, I know this is scary and it causes a lot of anxiety. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to do this, but I'm gonna try. And it was just that passion to try. And people watching this to understand, you don't have to know how to do it. You are going to be scared, but along your journey, you're going to develop relationships and friendships with people who are truly going to support your cause and do different aspects of advocacy. In your case, for the tally bill, you had different people doing different things. And I was the person where I said, don't worry about it, Brian. You need something to get out there and someone to be loud. I'm the person who's going to do it for you. You don't need to do it. It'll follow. And I was, I followed through. I promise. I said, from the beginning, for people watching this, from the very beginning, I told Brian when his story popped up on my radar, a few thoughts ran through my head, and I don't know how to say them very diplomatically on here, but it was very upsetting to me to see that something like this happened. It also personally touched me because I experienced something similar as you did, but it did not affect, threatening my life. I was misdiagnosed, and it led to a whole journey of fighting the VA. And it took me 2 years and 4 months. And it turns out that after seeing 9 medical professionals at the VA, most of them contracted, they all had misdiagnosed me. And I'm was in so much pain walking and wincing that I was just walking with a cane all the time. And I still had to use it sometimes, but not to the extent. And I just it took me over 2 years to advocate and correct that change. And then literally within a year, your story popped up on my radar, and I was just, I was like, good night. I'm like, this is about as tore up from the floor up as you can get. And so I reached out to a post, and then I messaged Jay and I said, so listen, I'm going to help you with this. I'm going to support you. And I don't expect you to believe me, but I always follow through with my word. And that's how our journey together started. I was just some chick in Ohio that was like, I'm going to help you. and actions speak louder than words. So, and I always do what I say I'm going to do, and you'll learn this down the road. And then here we are these years later. And that's the whole thing. You were not an advocate like I have been, both personally and professionally. And you didn't know, like you said earlier, you didn't really know, all the ins and outs of Congress and Senate and how to write law and how to advocate. And you use social media to basically garner focus on this issue. And it brought people in to support your mission. This we undertook. And for all the negative aspects of social media, your personal story and legislative advocacy journey shows that there are positive aspects of social media that you can use to your advantage, to promote awareness, to garner support, to put out calls to action, to mobilize your followers and their friends to call their congressional leaders and their Senate leaders, and using social media to raise some funds so that you could fly back to DC. Like you said, you went 4 times and you didn't have a job, you didn't have any income. How was this going to happen? And you did all this on social media, and you didn't pay a lobbyist. You didn't pay a firm to do this for you. This was all grassroots of people coming together and the momentum slowly building. And it all started with your story, and your journey and your story is what led you to create the bill to affect positive change that positively impact the veteran community as a whole. But then on top of that, what a lot of people are not going to understand, and even veterans, is that this is a very historical, goes in the books of history type of change, because you overturned a 74-year-old policy. And I know that some people are like, that's really awesome, but to understand that level of change that brings about, it's not like, hey, I changed something. It was, I changed history, changed something. And that is just very commendable, because a lot of organizations don't get that done. And one of the things is you were very smart with who you brought on board to bring into your inner circle that you knew were legit going to help you. And then brainstorming with your close-knit group on the tally team to figure out who's going to do what, who's good at what, who's not afraid to say it like it is. Crystal's not afraid to say it like it is, and that kind of stuff. So you started this on your own and created a small group, and it just kind of blew up all through social media.
Yeah. I mean, I look back at it and I can't believe how far we've come, and, it's, like you said, it's, 74 years of so many folks, like me. And, I gotta say, back when the law was originally written in 1946, I understood the concept of it. But in 2020 and 2021, it doesn't make any sense for that to still be in place, because in 1946, let's face it, there was very, very few independent contractors that were working within the VA. They were all VA employees. And over the years and decades and generations, the VA Office of General Counsel has figured out ways to be, to use these laws to their advantage, to pretty much deny claims, rightful claims for compensation to veterans, again, that have been injured due to no fault of their own and had their livelihood stripped away from them, and find these clauses and to find things that work for them. And again, it is horrible that somebody could actually sleep at night knowing that they're going to hold the clock on a veteran and their family, and know that they're getting ready to destroy someone's life. And once you get your life destroyed medically, and then they completely throw the legal malpractice on you, again, it's just too much. And that's why this law hasn't been changed, because I was 99% done. I was a strong man, mentally and somewhat physically. I had a broken body a little bit. I mean, I was still a pretty, healthy guy, but, again, I had enough for a pretty good, significant VA rating, who I use for my doctor. But what I'm trying to say is this. Once this happened to me, it absolutely put me completely, I was done. I was quit. I had nothing left to give until that one day, when I just pretty much knelt over my bathtub, filled that sucker up with tears, put it all into God's hands. And I said, just guide me. I need you, and that whole 1% better, works, it works. And, there's days and months that'll go by, and, sometimes even a year where you're just in quicksand and you're sinking, and there's no way out, but just digging a little bit here and there, and just never giving up, even on the days that, you feel, that you're totally incapable of doing anything, sometimes just getting up and brushing your teeth is an accomplishment, throughout a lot of this stuff. And that will turn into, let me check an email now, and then you end up engaging and doing something. And like I said, it's on my mind 24/7, 365, every second, every minute, every hour of every single day. Like I said, in order to get something like this done, there needs to be a form of obsession with it, and to know that it's a good obsession. It's an obsession that's going to change the lives of so many folks, that will now be going through something very similar. But again, why is this taking so long? Because of the of how egregious and how severe it is. People go through crazy medical, life-changing stuff that is enough for them to just quit right there. And then again, to go through the legal malpractice. Now you're done physically and mentally and emotionally and financially. And, there's really nowhere to go. I mean, legit, like, I'm done here. I'm waving the flag, I'm done. But to get up and to stand up and to take these little strides every single day, if you would have told me, I don't even know how I've done it, again, other than just put into God's hands, and having support, and, so that's the most important thing. I know it's very, I've been talking about my story now for quite some time, and every single time I do it, it's sad. It makes me emotional. It makes me, it's definitely humbled me, as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a friend, and to know that I've got well over 11,000 hours in on this mission, almost 12,000 hours. When I started, I knew nothing about advocacy, and now I've become a hell of an advocate, and a hell of a voice, for folks that don't have one, and it's hard to be heard. And let's just think, over these last 3 years, I had 4 bills introduced, and we have had law. There hasn't been any major breaking news stories over the last 3 years, I mean, let's just say we've had impeachments, we've had the coronavirus, we've had stuff blow up worldwide, we've had our country blow up. And to remain in front of Congress, to remain in front of them throughout all of these crazy stories. I lost my congressman. He got in trouble. He had to go to court. VA shakeups, and Shulkin was out. And then, House impeachment and Senate impeachment. We've got crazy storms. We've got pandemics going on worldwide. So to remain in front of Congress as a legit, very important piece of legislation is even hard. If this would have been just a regular, the 90s or whatever, and this would have been, I think this would have happened very, very quickly. But we are in a time of great concern of so many different aspects. So there's hundreds of me trying to stay in front of Congress, if not thousands of guys like me that are trying to remain in front of Congress, and Congress will kind of weed through all this stuff, and whatever's important to them will rise to the top. And to accomplish this feat with everything else that's going on in our country and in our world is even more incredible. I look back at it. How in the heck did we do this? And again, it takes passion. It takes a plan. It takes 100%, 110% every single day, dedication, commitment, determination, tenacity. And again, to kill them with kindness. Kill them with kindness, because if you don't, they're going to tune you out. And if you get tuned out, you're done. You're done. And I'm glad I always kept my bearing. I've always been a true professional, and that's what got us across the finish line. And it's just crazy. You think about the story, it's nuts. You know what I mean?
I mean, in a nutshell, and that's the other thing for people to understand, is here you had the situation and like every possible barrier that could have happened with you medically.
Absolutely.
And then when you start this advocacy journey, everything that's going on in the world between the coronavirus pandemic, social inequality really coming to the forefront and bringing about the needed attention, and there's the protesting, and there's riots over the coronavirus guidelines and restrictions, and protesting different political aspects. There's been riots for different arenas of concern as well. And then, like you said, there's stuff that was going on worldwide. I mean, there was wildfires in California and Australia, and then we had murder hornets. And then it's like every time we turned around, something major was happening that was needing the attention of Congress and Senate. And Iran, the moral of the story is
North Korea.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. And again, everything needed the attention of Congress. Legit. Every single day there was some crazy breaking news, and still today I'm so glad. Oh my God, I couldn't imagine continuing on in the 117th Congress, because now there's just so much more stuff going on, and just snowballs. So
and a lot of these situations that have come up over the past couple of years, it's like when you uncap one situation, then you see that there's these other variables attached to that situation, which is a problem. But the whole moral of the story is that even when you only have 1% left, when there's a will, there's a way, and that the smallest steps on that journey can lead to the biggest change and impact. And like you said, sometimes there was just days, a lot of days. I get it. A lot of people ask me, how do you do what you can do? And I'm like, I literally schedule or block times out a couple of days a week where I'm going to address certain things. But I'm all like, if today the only thing I did was email, whether it was my state representative, my congressional leaders, or my senator, if that's the one thing I did today, I did something to emote some change. And I'm going to be proud of myself for doing that one thing, for how much my illnesses and chronic pain interfere with my ability to live a fully effective lifestyle, for lack of a better way to describe it. But the whole point is, your story, anyone's story in our shoes, is if you have that 1% and you have the will and you have the drive and you just stay persistent. And even if that persistency means I emailed one congressional leader today and I called one senator yesterday, even if it's that one task a day of what you do, and you just stay consistent and you follow it and you stay true, there is a really great likelihood of success in the end. It doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. And as you and I both know, it did not happen overnight with your tally, Bell. It did not happen overnight. And like you said, things changed. Congress members changed over at midterms, and you kind of had to go back to the start to get in Congress and in Senate to support your bills. So it wasn't that it happened overnight. The moral of the story, though, is it did happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say it wasn't a long road, but it did happen. And it's just to let people know that when you put your mind to something and you think creatively and you build a team around you, you can accomplish a lot of things. Legislatively, policy, you can positively impact people's lives just by being a beacon of hope. And you had a lot of followers who weren't veterans. You ended up garnering a lot of attention on social media, and they were not veterans, and they didn't have someone they were related to that were a veteran. But because your wise use of social media, you were able to garner the attention and support from people that, if we didn't have social media, might not have heard your story. So at the end of the day, that's what matters, is that 1% is what kept you going and kept you getting 1% more, tackling those small tasks, having a small, tight net, good team around you to help you with getting the word out and helping you motivate people, because to call or email their Congress leaders, because while you're in DC, you need that team that, gets people engaged and keeps them engaged while you're busy, because you can't answer every email immediately or every comment or every message. And so, that's the whole premise here, is that this is what you call grassroots advocacy. You had something, a grievance happened to you, and you could have just chosen not to do anything, but realized in your circumstances that there's probably millions of veterans who chose not to do anything because it was such a huge undertaking. And you decided, I have 1%. We can't have this happen again. I'm going to change this one step at a time, one day at a time. I'm going to build a support team. We're going to use social media to get the word out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to have to do it on my own, because there's so much stuff going on in the world that everybody's attention is divided. Organizational support groups are divided on what they can and can't support. And you just stayed the course. And the moral of the story is, if you set your mind to something, there's a will, there's a way, and you've got to have that faith, and you got to hold on to that hope. And then if those rough days where you feel like giving up, that's when you make sure that your support team is there to lift you up and say, hey man, today was a bad day, but it's not a bad life. It's not a bad journey. Like, you're on the right path, and there's going to be bumps in the road, and you might not be able to go over them, but we're going to help you figure out another way to go around it.
Yeah, I had plenty of those days. And like I said, I was very blessed to have some great folks in my life. That, I mean, they were always there, so, yeah, incredible. Sometimes it just leaves me speechless. So
before we move to wrapping up, do you have any other words of wisdom or sage advice, or knowing that there's people who are traveling the legislative advocacy path and you've been there, outside of everything that we touched upon, is there anything else, like I said, words of wisdom, advice to help those individuals who are starting their journey on legislative advocacy?
it is something that you need to do every single day. And like I said, if you have any passion or any thing that you're so, you want change, you need to have it. You need to want it really bad, because it is so easy to get lost in Congress. And, like I said, 200 emails, you might get 10 emails back, but you got to keep emailing that guy. And then you got to sometimes go around people, and sometimes you need to make other phone calls. And sometimes you need to, go to one side of the aisle and then go to the other side of the aisle and play these guys. Unfortunately, politics is messy, and I didn't realize how messy it was until I got into the middle of it. And it's something that again, shouldn't be this way, in our country. Nobody wants to work with each other. And again, that's why I'm so pleased that I ended up, getting the most liberal senators and members of Congress to team up with some of the most conservative Republicans and to be the guy in the middle. Some say to play the adult in the room, to bring these sides together,
right,
to form one common goal. Say, hey, look, let's get together for the good of the country. And that's where a lot of folks have failed over the last several years, is that they have put party over, politics over party over politics, whatever the way it is. But folks have got to understand that these guys work for us. They work for us. So they need to understand that we elect them to go to DC to be our voice. So at the end of the day, don't let these guys and gals ignore you, and you will get ignored. And sometimes you got to learn and know when to disengage. My senators wouldn't call me back. My senators wouldn't email me back.
Right. And
so you got to know when to keep, you got to, so my number one advice is to work hard, push hard, do everything you can in your power to be heard. If you get to a point where you're like, man, I have not gotten a return call, I have not gotten an email, it's been months, you need to walk away. You need to disengage and go to the next one, or go to the next dozen, because you will finally have somebody that will answer your call to service. And once you get somebody to answer that call to service, you do not let that go. You stay on top of them. You check in. You got to quick emails, not books. Quick 2-sentence. Hey, how you doing? Hey, I just want to follow up, blah, blah, blah. And you're done, because they won't read long emails. They won't read your story. They won't read any of this. Like you need to get in, you need to get out. You need to get in, you need to get out. And once you have their attention, you stay in front of them. You stay in front of them. You stay in front of them, and you will learn. You will learn what you need to do once you're put in that situation. Again, it's every story is different. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of different avenues here that people can take. Just don't give up. Just don't give up. Be professional. Be courteous, and just be likable. You got to be likable. You have to have some sort of a personality, even when you're dealing with these folks, and just be human. And know that these folks, they're just regular people that have a really important job. And
so basically, like, to surmise, and I've said this to you and we've discussed this, is that when you do this for level of advocacy, legislative advocacy, treat it like a job. Treat it like your sales networking, because you have to not just, it's like, yes, this what happened with you needs the attention, but you also kind of have to sell yourself. And I'm not saying to pretend to be something you're not, but if you want a person, just in general, if you want a person to be interested in you or something you're doing, you got to show interest in what they're doing. And a lot of times, like, a little caveat is I might look up like their bio to read some of their background. So I have some information about personal stuff, like, oh, this person is been married for 30 years and is a grandfather of 20 kids. And I might say, okay, thank you, Congressman, or, Congressman's woman. By the way, how's your grandchildren doing? And it kind of catches them off guard, but then it realizes that you took a personal caveat to create a connection. And so, yeah, it is a job, and you need to present yourself as if you're representing your business. You have to be neutral and be everybody's friend, because you have so many different political spectrums and you want to bring everybody together. And so regardless of what your personal beliefs are, your political stances are, the only way to get a bill passed is if all sides, both sides, every political representation in Congress and Senate is on board with you. If you don't have everybody on your team, it's not going to pass.
Yes, you're exactly right. And let me add just one more thing here before we wrap up. That's another major thing that you guys need to understand is that you need to check nobody knew what my political beliefs are. They still don't, because you want to know why? I never talk about it. You have to, when you're trying to get a law changed, I'm fighting for 20 million veterans, every walk of life, from every walk of life. So because I may believe a certain way politically, that will affect how a member of Congress will look at you. So you have to go in there and you have to check your political beliefs or whatever it may be at the door. Check it at the door. And you need to speak and engage as if you are a member of Congress. I had to become my own member of Congress, but with zero party affiliation. And that's how I was able to effectively speak to Senator Blumenthal and to Senator Tillis and to former Congressman and former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Congressman Mike Levin. And, one of my co-sponsors was Rashida Tlaib. And people say, wow, how did you get her? Because I went to everybody. Mm-hmm. I went to everybody. I went to, again, the farthest of left, the farthest of right. I had to do whatever it took to get this bill across the finish line. And again, it's politics. I didn't know anything about politics. Now I do. Like I said, it's very weird. And I don't like how it makes, me feel when you are trying to engage with all these people, because unfortunately, everything today is political, and these folks in DC make decisions for so many folks that a lot of the times it's not for the good of the country, and so you have to go in there with your plan and with your purpose and with your drive and stick to the plan, stick to the script, don't get off course, stay engaged, be positive, and hope for the best. Again, that's what it is. But yeah, definitely don't go in with an agenda. You have to go in with a clear mind, say, this is the problem and here's the solution. What can we do to fix it?
Exactly.
There, do not get off course. Don't, you don't talk any politics with any politicians. You go in there and you say, here's the problem and here's the solution. And you stick to that script, you stick to that game plan, and you cannot get off course, because if you do get off course, so will your bill, so will your advocacy, and so will all of your efforts. So
right.
That's probably another really good recommendation, to give out to your folks too online that that are thinking. And this is not a fun job. And trust me, like I was a successful businessman before this happened, an entrepreneur. I owned a landscape company that did fairly well. And I ran this like a business. I had to run this as if it were my business. It just didn't come with the paycheck. And this is the hardest job I've ever had in my life. And it's the only one that never came with the paycheck. Again, and sometimes you need to forfeit that paycheck. You need to leave that at the door and say, okay, what's more important? Me getting this job done, or me being worried that I'm not being paid for my services? Hey, it doesn't matter. I decided to engage. I decided that something needed to be done. I decided that I would work for the good of the country, and I decided I would have a bill, and I decided we will have law, and I will be in this fight until we have law. And that's what happened. It's service over self. And once you develop a plan and a strategy, stick with it, don't give up, and surround yourself with like-minded people. You are who you roll with. If you roll with folks that are lazy and that only want to put in 30% or 40% and aren't going to be folks that are going to encourage you and support you and stand by you and help work with you, you need to disengage. You want to be with folks that are driven. You want to be with folks that are leaders. You want to be with folks that aren't afraid to put in work. You have to be surround yourself with talent. If you surround yourself with folks that, again, are lazy, you're going to be lazy. If you want to surround yourself with talent, and you want to surround yourself with folks that have good principles, you are going to be that person. And again, that's where getting 1% better every day is too. You need to have a leader. You need to have somebody that you're going to look up to. You're going to need, a mentor, and you see something out there and you say, hey, that's a real guy, or that's a woman right there. And I like what they're about. I like their style. And I'm in these really bad times right now. How can I make myself better? Well, sometimes all it takes is just seeing how other, folks get through these life-changing circumstances and how you can make yourself better. And again, it is who you hang out with and who you, pretty much, again, it's, who you hang out with. It's who you, talk to and stuff like that is who you will become. So you want success, hang out with successful people. And that's how I've always modeled my life and, everything else that, that I've ever done. So,
basically to do a recap is don't be afraid to share your story. 1% drive a day is okay. Build a strong team around you that not only that you can trust are going to do the work, but that you can go to when you need that emotional support on those bad days, or people who can mentor you who have been through there. You want to be neutral when you're dealing with legislative advocacy, because you're dealing with a lot of different politicians that represent different parties. Or I say, like, whenever someone asks me what my political opinion is, I say I support political humanism. And if someone asks me what my religion is, I say my religion is being a humanist and staying neutral and saying, like, the issue here is about human beings and not politics or religion. And you kind of want to, carry yourself like this is a job, like you're a business person, and learn the language. You need to learn some of the language of Congress and Senate. Don't be afraid to do a little bit of research to find out some personal caveats of the congressional leaders and senators you want to reach out to. The other tidbit to give both you and I on with the tally bill, you didn't have a Congress leader to begin with. My assigned district congressional leader was not responsive. So I went around that individual and I started calling all the other Congress leaders in Ohio to elicit their support for the tally bill. And that's the other thing. Don't get stuck if you can't create a connection with your direct assigned congressional leader or your senator. It's okay to call other congressional leaders within your state or even in a different state. Be passionate, but be realistic and understand that this is going to take time, and that to make sure, though, you also are prioritizing your self-care during this long process and this long journey, because you'll burn out. But at the end of the day, as you said, when there's 1% to give, there's a will. When there's a will, there's a way, and you have a great team to support you, and then you maximize the benefits of social media to get your story out there and your advocacy efforts out there, that that can be a good recipe for success if you stay the course. So with that said, Brian, as always, I have mad respect for you as a fellow veteran, but as a friend, I consider you my brother. I got your back. But I really appreciate you taking the time to share your journey, your knowledge, the insight, and things you learned along the way on your journey, so that when people watch this video and they're going on their journeys for legislative advocacy, they have your best tips and personal experiences to help strengthen their journey. And the other thing is, for everybody who would like to connect with Brian Talley, please check him out on Facebook at Rally Around Tally. He has that page going. It's a great page of information, especially if you want to do legislative or policy advocacy. You could go through the page to learn about his journey more, different ways that him and his supporters and direct team helped promote the tally bill. Eddie still posts some interesting things and important information and veteran initiatives at Rally Around Tally. So make sure to go and like his page on Facebook, Rally Around Tally. And until next time, Please make sure to love yourselves, make your self-care your number one priority, and take care of each other. And if you found this informational video useful, please like and share. Brian, thank you again.
Thank you.